Am I the a-hole for showing my daughter the text her fiancé sent me? I'm a widower with 2 children, 23-year-old biological daughter and 17-year-old stepson, Adam. My late wife passed away 2 years ago, leaving me to care for Adam, disabled, wheelchair-bound. His sister loves him, and she always visits and checks in on him. Her fiancé Mike and I don't get along because of how he behaves around us. Unlike us, Mike comes from a prosperous family, and they always tend to show off what they have. Mike treats my daughter well, but acts as if me and my family were less than. He doesn't eat nor drink anything at my house. He and his mom make comments about our living space and constantly brag about what his family got. My daughter was visiting and said she wanted me and her brother be at the wedding to share her day. The day I received the invitation, Mike called and expressed how he and his family weren't thinking Adam's presence at his sister's wedding was necessary. He went on about his family's upper-class guests and how Adam's presence would feel out of place, and suggested I come alone. I told him my daughter said she wanted Adam there, but he kept coming up with suggestions till we started arguing. I checked with my daughter to clear any misunderstanding, and Mike then said Adam could come. I then got text from him talking about how it's his wedding, so I needed to stop sticking my nose where it doesn't belong. He mentioned my son isn't technically family anyway, so it wouldn't matter if he's uninvited. Claiming I was trying to be mean on purpose to make it hard because I don't like him. He finished by saying that this is my fair warning, and that if I choose to make my son's presence at the wedding my hill to die on, then I just sign away any rights to any future grandchildren he and my daughter will have. That was it. He kept calling, but I blocked him. I invited my daughter to my home to tell her I won't attend if my son won't. She asked what happened. I showed her the text Mike sent me, and she was shocked. Said nothing, just took a picture of it and left. My sisters came the next day, saying the wedding was off after a huge argument between Mike and my daughter because of me. Argued that I created this problem when I showed my daughter the text, and I could have respected the groom's rules since it's his wedding. But I was being controlling, not wanting my daughter to be happy. Went on about Mike being high class, a man with a salary, his own house and car. More relatives were saying they would have had someone watch Adam if this was the issue. But it wasn't. Then they claimed it was because of my resentment towards Mike. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. You saved your daughter from getting married to an ableist bigot. It was much better for her to find out what he's really like now than after they're bound together by legal paperwork. Holy cow, this! Imagine how she would feel if she didn't find out until after marriage, or worse, after kids. She cares about her brother, and her fiancé showed his true colors. Better to find out before it becomes more complicated to leave. Not a-hole. Not a-hole. Oh, hell no! Do not let your daughter marry that prick. If Opie prevented daughter marrying Mike, he'd be just as bad as Mike. Hopefully he stays true to her word now that she's realized what a scummy, controlling snob he is. Not a-hole. The wedding's not off because of you. It's off because of Mike's snobbishness and ableism. You know the old thing about how you can tell a person's true self by their treatment of waitstaff and cashiers? It applies equally well here. Your daughter deserved to know what her fiancé was saying. She might not be happy right now, but your daughter dodged a bullet. You're the one who yelled at her to duck. Not a-hole. The wedding is off because your daughter realized that if her fiancé was willing to treat her brother this way, then he wasn't the type of man she wanted to spend her life with. Tell your gold-digging sisters that Mike is now single. They can chase after him if these assets are so important. But you have a family that cares for each other, and that's all you need. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for rudely telling my husband I decide who is in the delivery room? So for context, I, 28 female, am currently pregnant with my partner, 31 male, and I'm a first-time mom. My hospital recently changed their policy and are now allowing 2 support people in the delivery room. My mother-in-law made comments early on that she wanted to be there for the birth, and this woman is not subtle. At the time, I felt protected by COVID protocols, but set that expectation straight. I explicitly stated that anytime I give birth, it will be a private medical experience that only includes my husband and medical team. I thought that it was clear it wasn't a debate, because it's my body and I have the autonomy to decide who sees it in any context. Additionally, I do not have a good relationship with my mother-in-law. She just recently started initiating positive interactions after years of me trying, and it's absolutely because she's an "it's my grandbaby" person. Recently, my husband told me we needed to have a discussion. He starts off by saying he mentioned the support person protocol change to his mother. I tried not to react, but immediately I blurted out asking why he would do that. He goes on to say he knows his mother really wants to be in the room to see the baby's first breath. I replied logically, if your mom sees their first breath, she will also see me pushing and will be looking down at my canal. I actually had to explain why I refused to give birth in front of his mother. I then told him that there are only two priorities in the delivery room, and neither of them are his mother or her feelings. The discussion continued back and forth. Finally, I started crying. I told him that the labor and birth will be the most painful and vulnerable experience of my life, and that I need him to protect me. I told him that anyone who refuses to protect their pregnant partner failed them, and it's just dead weight in the delivery room. My husband told me I'm rude, other negative things too, left our apartment, and when he came back, he wasn't speaking to me. This is where I think I could be the a-hole. I told him giving me the silent treatment, because I won't let his mother spectate at my most intimate area rips open, was very immature. It made me worry if he has the emotional intelligence to support me in the delivery room. I think my husband took my hint, but I didn't explicitly say that I can decide he won't be allowed in there either. I will say I would be devastated if I had to do that, and never thought this would ever be a problem during my pregnancy. So, am I the a-hole? Info. I did cuss when talking about freaking ripping, but that was it. I also wasn't yelling, but I was sobbing loudly enough during it that my neighbor next door knocked to check on me after he left. Edited for added info. I saw some questions. Sorry about not including this originally. I'm a mess currently. I have a mother and two sisters, both moms, who I love endlessly, but I didn't ask any of them to be in the delivery room because I only wanted my husband there. Also, I did not yell at my husband at any point during this interaction. I was sobbing. I didn't lose my cool. In fact, my husband's screaming was why my neighbor in the apartment next door heard and came and knocked after he left. She told me when I answered the door, I move slower these days, that she was so glad I answered because she was considering calling 911. Not the a-hole. Your husband pulled a moronic move going behind your back to let mother-in-law know she might be able to be in there. That, my dear, is fully 100% up to you. In fact, I think you need to let the staff know that under no circumstances is she allowed in the room. Give them a close-up mugshot of her. This 100%. If possible, let them know ASAP, so that if she tries to get in on the day, they can kick her straight out. I'd skip kicking her out and go straight to having her arrested. Not the a-hole. This is insane. Hold your ground, Opie. Ask your husband how he'd feel if your dad chaperoned a future vasectomy. You know, to provide support and coach him through it. Some people need analogies. Not the a-hole. What is with all the mother-in-laws in the world suddenly deciding they need to see the birth of their grandchildren? No mother-in-law I've ever met thought she deserved to be in the delivery room. It's completely up to you who is in the room. But beware, she might try to sneak in. Make sure the hospital staff knows it's just you and your husband. Maybe have him watch a video of a live birth so he understands how absolutely vulnerable you will be in that moment. Thank you for the suggestion because I was thinking of this, but was worried I was being over the top. I told him I wanted him to watch a human birth when he brought this up. Now it's required because honestly, I don't want him in the room if he's so ignorant and uneducated on the process. Because then he really will just be dead weight and probably will cause me and the baby stress. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for finally telling my sister I asked to move in with my dad to get away from her? My sister Hannah, 26 female, is 2 years older than me, 24 female. Growing up with her was fine until she turned 10, and then her personality just switched. Everything was an argument. I have no idea if it was really triggered by her dad leaving the country, back to Honduras, or mental health issues. I never asked, because she never wanted to talk about it. While Hannah and I share a mom, We do not share fathers. Mom wasn't with either of our dads, romantically, for long. I don't judge her for that, it is just how things were. My dad stuck around, wanted everything to do with me. Hannah's dad was around until he left, got married, and rarely called. I went through a lot of instability and told my dad how miserable I was. Mom couldn't focus on both of us. Sometimes my dad would pick me up and take me for a week. I would come back to my things ripped up, Hannah clinging to me, or her shouting at me that she hated me, wanted me to go away. My mom didn't know how to make it stop, and I seemed to be the target of Hannah's jealousy and emotional fits. So when my dad met stepmom, Judy, and they talked about moving to her hometown, Portland, I begged to come with them. At this point, I was living with them almost full-time. Most of my things were at their house because Hannah liked to just destroy my stuff for fun. Dad took me to school and I would see my mom on the weekends, but even that might be cut short. My mom agreed after I said it was for the best. I was already miserable, and she should focus all her time on Hannah. And it worked out. I had a family where I wasn't suddenly attacked for simply existing. And Hannah had all the attention she needed to have therapy and work on her problems. But I guess my mom told her that custody was awarded to my dad because he made more. Hannah was visiting me in Portland 2 years ago and asked if I ever resented the courts for not letting us grow up together. I asked where she heard that. I then said, "I love you, Hannah, but I moved in with my dad because you treated me like crap." It recently came up that Hannah is back in therapy because she keeps remembering the comment I made and feels terrible about it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Look, your sister went through obvious mental problems and took them out on you. She was a confused and scared 10-year-old. I do not think she is a horrible person for that, and I love and commend the fact that you two have reconnected now that you are both adults. You are a star for seeing things how they are, not holding them against her. But that said, you are adults now. You are allowed to speak the truth and you did it in a respectful manner. Her behavior impacted your life. Things got a lot better when we were in high school and college. Distance really helped. But she seems to misremember a lot of what happened when we were kids. My mom told her a lot of things differently that I feel happened. And I think she didn't realize I remembered the things she did and still kind of resented. She might remember them less vividly or completely blocked them out since she was only 10, and your mother has been sheltering her. I mean, I hardly remember anything from when I was 10. You? That does not mean your feelings are not valid. People doing horrible things to others are much more likely to forget what they have done because they are not the ones who got hurt. It is not a shame to remember of this, as long as you do not do it repeatedly / hold it over her. I hope you got some therapy / help with this as well. Stay safe. Not a hole for being honest with her as an adult, and she probably needed therapy anyways. I honestly don't know why she stopped. She gets emotionally irregular if she doesn't go and talk stuff out. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my daughter the basement suites after I renovated it only because she refused to give up her room upstairs? I've been remarried for 2 years now, and we recently had a son. I also have a 14-year-old daughter from my first marriage, and a 12 and 9-year-old stepsons. When my wife was 5 months pregnant, I asked my daughter if she could swap rooms with my stepsons. We had only 4 bedrooms at the time. My daughter had the largest room. Our plan was for my daughter to take the second largest room, my stepsons to share her larger room, and convert the smallest room into a nursery. I thought this was a fairly reasonable ask, but my daughter made it into a huge fight. And worse was when my ex got involved, who then threatened to take me to court to reduce my custody of my daughter all over a room. This caused way too much stress at home, and I gave in, which I do regret now. But I then proceeded to renovate the basement suite. With my father's help, the basement now had the largest bedroom with a lounge and a full bathroom. It's very easily the nicest part of the house. The kids then started fighting over who would move down there. And I very firmly told my daughter that I renovated it because she refused to give up her room. So my 12-year-old stepson gets to move down there. I don't know if it's just puberty, but my daughter has become extremely hostile and downright mean over this. She no longer comes over as much as before, citing the unfair room as the reason. My ex fully supports her. and I have to wait 5 months before I can even fight this in court. At this point, I'm not even sure it's worth the legal cost because she'll be 15 in December and her opinion will count in the court. Am I the a-hole for not giving in to my daughter's frankly bratty demands? It's killing me that my daughter feels like I'm pushing her out of the family, but I want to stay true to what I think is right. All attempts to get us in family therapy has been denied by my ex. And my poor father now feels terrible because he's being partly blamed since he helped with the renovations. I don't think you are an a-hole, but you haven't handled this well. Your daughter is in that awkward teen phase, and if the initial room was always hers, assuming your wife and stepsons moved into your house, then I can totally see her feelings displaced in favor of the new family and the new baby. I think it depends on how you ask her and explain the situation. She now sees a nice fancy room downstairs and her stepbrother get it and feels further punished. Not saying she's right, and she's definitely acting bratty and entitled, but you might want to examine why your daughter feels so displaced when she visits/lives with you. Not the a-hole for this situation specifically. She literally got what she wanted though. They had to go a different course because she wasn't going to agree. So she kept what she wanted originally. She has no reason to feel punished or displaced. She's being enabled by her abusive mom. I've actively watched my sister go through some horrible custody crap, taking mistreatment from her son because her ex is brainwashing him to hate her, and she has to play nice for court purposes. She just moved to another state for a job opportunity and has a year to show that it's a good place for her son to be as well, / that she can support him there. And his dad is already turning it around that the courts are deeming her unfit to be a mom 100%, instead of realizing that she was his main provider for 13 years. When it comes to manipulative exes and courts, there's no good way to handle this mess. I think Opie did everything they were supposed to do, to the point where he didn't force his daughter to move when she didn't want to. Daughter is being brainwashed by mom, plain and simple. Parental alienation is what I'm looking for. 100%. Also not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. If there is one here, it's your ex. Your request of your daughter was reasonable given the dynamics of the children in the household. At 14, she's old enough to understand this, but it sounds like there are other things at play that are influencing her behavior. The divorce, your ex poisoning the well, trying to blend families and her feeling pushed out that make me empathetic towards her. Am I the a-hole for not babysitting for my sister-in-law anymore after she called the police on me? My sister-in-law and I have an agreement. She watches my kids 3 days a week, and I watch hers 3 days a week. This agreement has stood since March 2020 without issues. Any changes have been discussed weeks in advance. A couple weeks ago, we had an argument. The next day, I brought my kids to her house, dropped them off, and left. I didn't speak to my sister-in-law because when one of us is in a rush like I was, it's standard for us to just let the kids out, stay in the car, and drive off when you see the door open. I drove to work about 40 minutes away. When I got there, I had about 20 missed calls and even more texts, all from my sister-in-law, all saying she didn't want to watch the kids given our argument. Her first text arrived a little before I got to her place, but I didn't see it until I got to work because my phone is always on silent when I drive. I rang her, said I'll arrange to work from home, then come get the kids. She said I have 45 minutes to get back to her place or she would call the police. I told my supervisor the situation, and she said I could leave after I did a few things. This delayed me 20 minutes. When I got back to my sister-in-law's just over an hour later, she said she'd already called the police when the 45 minutes ran out. I then had to stick around long enough to tell the officer that I didn't abandon my children. There was just a communication issue. Sister-in-law and I had another shouting match later over this. I arranged other childcare for my kids, and I've been mostly ignoring her since. However, she reached out and apologized, and has asked if I'd be willing to go back to the old childcare arrangement. I've told her to go screw herself. I work with kids. If I got child abandonment in my record, I would never work in my field again, which she knew, and her calling the police was a massive overreaction. So if she needs a babysitter, She can go whistle for all I care. She said that if I checked my phone, talked to her that morning, or came back when I was supposed to, she would not have needed to call the police. And I did this to myself, as she gave me a warning with that first text, and I could have checked my phone or spoken to her directly when I got to her place, all of which she says she would have done if she were in my position, given that we'd argued the night before. I've told her that if she thinks I'm babysitting for her, she's freaking delusional, and she's on her own. Because of my refusal, it's looking like she may have to quit her job, because my brother and her would pay more for a babysitter than they would earn from her working. My mother and brother have both called me Nihal because there were no consequences to her calling the police, and that while she overreacted, she's apologized. So if I really forgive her, I'll let us move on. This income loss would also mean that she, my brother, and my niece and nephew might need to move somewhere cheaper, that my brother might have to take on extra hours at work, and in an extreme scenario, they may even be completely unable to live independently, meaning they'd have to move in with her parents, who live several hours away. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The only delusional person here is sister-in-law. Who calls the police on an essential worker out of spite? Let her struggle to find childcare or lose her job. You could have easily lost yours. In the name of full disclosure, I'm not exactly an essential worker, but my service has remained open, and I need to go into my workplace a few days a week to get confidential documents, among other things. It could have been bigger than your job. It could impact the custody of your kids. Your family's delusional if they think you are the a-hole. Your sister-in-law's actions have consequences, and would be lucky if you ever let her be close to your kids ever again. If your mom or anybody else complains you do not look after the kids, they can look after them themselves. Not the a-hole. Don't let her reel you back in. She still blames you for her calling the police, which means she isn't sorry and would do it again. Her losing you as a babysitter is a consequence of her actions. Forgot that part. That's essentially a non-apology if it ever was one. She said that if I checked my phone, talked to her that morning, or came back when I was supposed to, she would not have needed to call the police, and I did this to myself. Basically, she darvoed. Deny, accuse, reverse victim, and offender. Not only it is gross to up and decide to not watch the kids as per your agreements because she is mad at you, indeed take it out on the kids, but also to let you know by text after you had already left. She was trying to create another argument. She beyond escalated this to a place it never should have gone. Calling the police and risking your licensure. Your mom and brother need to take a flying leap though, for encouraging you to sweep this under the rug. She has shown you her true colors. Now believe her and follow your gut instinct of cutting her out. And if she complains that she has to leave her work, remind whichever flying monkey she sends to harass you that she did this to herself. Not the a-hole, OP. Not the a-hole. She wanted to escalate it? Enjoy the outcome of the escalation. I'm annoyed that the brother and mother-in-law aren't telling her that she messed up. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for saying that taking care of my kids by myself was relaxing? My wife thinks I am devaluing her contribution to our family and implying she's got it easy. My 40 male, wife 35 female, and I have 2 kids. My wife is a stay-at-home mom while I am an air traffic controller. My son is 13 months old and my daughter is nearly 3 years old. Our issue occurred because my wife has been a bit stir-crazy during this pandemic and feels trapped being at home constantly. I try to help by having weekend outings outdoors, but there is only so much we can safely do. She was particularly upset when she found out that because her parents and siblings who live in another state have finally been fully vaccinated, they were going to have a get-together and spend a weekend together after a year apart. She initially intended to take the kiddos with her, but due to scheduling issues with some important doctor's appointments for my son, she wouldn't be able to go. I suggested to her that she still goes, and I'll take care of the kiddos while she's gone, and use some time off of work. She initially left and said there was no way I could handle the kids on my own, and that daddy playtime after work hasn't prepared me for handling 2 kids on my own. I was pretty miffed by this comment and told her I guarantee I can handle it. I'm an ATC. It's not like I can't handle stress. We discussed it further and I told her I really think she needs to take this trip for the sake of her mental health. After some convincing, she decided to go. And over the course of Tuesday to Sunday, I took care of the kids, cleaned, and took care of all meals. I got my son to his appointments. We played outside since we finally got some nice weather, and it all went off without a hitch. The problem was that I think my wife thought I was going to be completely out of my depth, and sitcom husband style have the Rugrats destroying the house while I helplessly looked on. This is not what happened. I enjoyed my time with my kids, and throughout the week as she checked in, multiple times a day, she seemed a bit annoyed how calm I was about taking on this responsibility by myself. When she arrived home and saw everything was good, she seemed relieved. But when I commented that I had an extremely relaxing week/weekend with the kids, she blew up on me and said I was being completely insensitive and that acting like I had it so easy was like coming into her workplace and commenting on how easy her job is. I disagree. I was just trying to assure her that the kids didn't get neglected and that it wasn't a hardship to take care of them. She doesn't see it that way. Am I the a-hole? No a-holes here. I have 2 kids and 3 step-kids, and it's a nightmare. Looking after the kids on your own for a few days isn't something that's going to cause burnout in comparison to being with them 24/7. So your ability to cope in this situation isn't a representative example for her to be resentful over, or you to be particularly proud of. Having said that, isn't ADC the job with the highest self-harm rate in the world? If that's true, no wonder you're good at dealing with stress. Not the a-hole. Rather than being excited that her husband can take care of the kids with no issues and using it as a chance to take breaks more often, which it sounds like she needs, she wanted you to fail somehow? Perhaps it is her stress talking. I don't think what you did was devaluing at all. My husband finds it fun to take all 3 kids grocery shopping, and I think it is a nightmare to wrangle 3 kids at a large grocery store with samples tempting them everywhere. So, guess who does the grocery shopping with all 3 kids while I make a nice family meal for us on Saturday? Pre-pandemic, of course. She sounds a bit on edge and needs more breaks and possibly some counseling to help her. Maybe set up every month a full day or 2 for her to do something with friends. Being a full-time stay-at-home mom is hard since it feels like a never-ending day with no markers or milestones. I about climbed the walls during maternity leave with each of my kids, and I adored being at home with them. Take care of her and your family. You are doing great. It sounds like your wife really needed that trip. Also, you weren't being insensitive about her caretaking abilities. She's the one who was being insensitive. How long of an opinion does she have of you that she thinks you'd be utterly incapable of watching your own kids for a few days? Not the a-hole. No a-holes here. You also need to realize, as does she, that you had them for a weekend by yourself. She has them nearly all the time by herself. It's much easier to get the kids to behave well when it's new but still apparent, especially when things go off without a hitch. The longer you do it, the more hitches you'll come across. Lockdown is getting to her, but you're not being insensitive as you should be. I personally feel. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not cooking after everyone insulted what I was making? I'm 17 female, the oldest of 5. Ever since COVID, my parents have left me in charge at home and have me cooking dinner most nights, 6 out of 7 to be exact. My siblings and I are going to school virtually, so we're in the house together all day, although they're going out to friends more now. There were always complaints about the food I was cooking. Don't want pasta, nor rice, why more chicken? Used up too many groceries for one dish. But lately, it has been bugging me more. I made pizza one night. I did a regular pizza because I was tired of complaints about the choices I was making. But even that wasn't good enough. My siblings all wanted more cheese and said it was horrible. Siblings are 15 male, 14 male, 12 female, 10 female. My dad wanted pineapple and ham on his pizza. My mom said pizza wasn't what she wanted to come home to on a Wednesday afternoon. I said nothing. I didn't even show I was frustrated. But the next day, I didn't make them anything. I made myself some spicy chicken noodles. Had it all cleaned up and everything before anyone got home, and then everyone was home and they were hungry and complaining. And then my parents exploded because they said I was being petty and rude, and they threatened to ground me because I didn't do all my chores. I told them they should have thought about that before crapping all over everything, and I was doing more than enough. And why ground me when I never even leave the house anyway? I'm basically a live-in nanny at this point, and I get treated worse than they would treat a paid nanny. They said it was a wrong move to let them go without food, especially my siblings. I guess I can see why that would be an a-hole move, but honestly, they should be more appreciative too. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. All 4 of your whiny siblings are old enough to minimally operate a microwave. Your parents are fools to think that grounding a person that is home all of the time is going to have any effect. Maybe there could be a night for each sibling to make a dinner. Your parents could cook on the weekends. Seriously, my 8-year-old literally made breakfast for my husband, 3-year-old, and me this morning. Granted, it was toast and, already, hard-boiled eggs, but it was buttered, salted, and plated when I came down. Literally no excuse for one person out of 6 to be expected to do all of the cooking with these age ranges. Yes, my daughters were making their sack lunches in 1st grade, under supervision to prevent a bag full of only chips, cookies, and fruit roll-ups. I hope that things get better for the OP. Not the a-hole, and this is classic. Pawning off this much work on the oldest daughter. Your parents should redistribute the chore load. No one should be forced to feed 7 people every night, especially if they're going to hear complaints about it. You have 7 family members, why not assign each one a dinner once a week? With some allowances made for the 10 to 12-year-old, of course. But even they should be able to learn to boil pasta and heat up sauce with supervision. Let me guess, you have to clean the dishes too? If I were you, I would have made my throwaway user named Basin Cinderella. Most of the time I clean up, yeah. Occasionally my mom has stepped in and done it, but it's normally paired with witching about how much there is to clean up. So, you do the cooking and cleaning for 7 people 6 or 7 days a week. What do those other 6 people in your household do for chores, other than eat your food and complain about it? My siblings don't do anything. My parents, I'm not even sure really. My mom cooks 1 night a week. They take care of their bedroom and bathroom, but other than that, I don't know. We have really messy areas of the home, but I'm only one person, and I'm not going to take all the housework on my shoulders either. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for being upset after my mother-in-law criticized my parenting and called my daughter disgusting? So I, 34 female, and my husband, 37 male, have 2 children, 12 female and 7 male. A few days ago, my husband, my kids, and I went on a walk with my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and her kids. Don't worry, we all followed corona regulations. My kids were walking with their cousins when mother-in-law threw a disgusted look at my daughter and said, "You should really put her on a diet. Kids shouldn't be so fat and disgusting. What are you feeding her?" Just to clarify, my daughter isn't fat and has always been on the thinner side. I blew up at her and told her that I wouldn't allow anyone to talk about my children like that. But she got very upset and said, "I wonder why my son married such a snowflake that can't even handle the truth." This was the last straw for me, and I took my husband and the kids and left. But apparently, mother-in-law told the rest of the family something completely different, and they have been blowing up my phone non-stop. Reddit. Am I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole. Time for your husband to step up and keep his mom/extended family in check, or just go no contact. Piggybacking here because I grew up with a grandmother who, loving as she was in my teens, kept reminding me I should hit the gym more often. Would watch my food like a hawk when we were at parties, would ask me if I really needed to eat a second slice of pie or whatever, and would compare me to my slimmer sister or more athletic cousins. It took a toll. I was by no means fat. I would define myself as the curvier size 6. I'm from a place where sizes 0 to 4 are the norm. But always healthy and never had any issues with potential related diseases. It wasn't until my mid-20s that I stopped hearing her whenever she spoke about my body or weight. And in my teens, for someone who already had a flaky self-esteem, having her around was always like a kick. When my mom heard the comments, she would tell her to shut up and should reaffirm that I was perfect the way I was. But I already heard the comments. OP definitely needs to get husband on board, and they both need to be very clear with mother-in-law. Not the a-hole. Even if your daughter was overweight, that was a disgusting thing for your mother-in-law to say about a kid. Surefire way to cause an eating disorder no matter how much the kid weighs. I think people shouldn't talk about someone else's weight in general, but pre-teen and teen years are such formative years. I think we all especially need to shut up about their bodies. Not the a-hole. Keep your kids away from mother-in-law. It's toxic people like that that mess with kids' self-esteem. I hope your husband supports you. Not the a-hole. You are a fantastic mother defending your children against someone attacking them, especially a family member. I hope your husband has your and your daughter's back and isn't backing his mother. He has a choice. He's either on his daughter's side or his mother's. I gotta wonder, you said this was the last straw. What else has your mother-in-law been saying or doing? Also, in my experience, people who call other people snowflakes and people who can't handle the truth are bullies who just use that as an excuse to be hurtful and miserable human beings who, ironically, can't take the truth when people call them on it. Again, not only are you not an a-hole, you are a hero for standing up for your daughter. I wish my parents stood up to my grandmothers like you did.